Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shining Gathering. I just want to check if we are live and if everyone could hear as well. Let us know in the comments. Okay, I think we're good. So again, welcome to the Shining Gathering. If you are a Shiny enthusiast and you're looking to level up your skills and connect with like-minded folks, you are in the right place. And our Shiny Gathering is a monthly virtual meetup. We held it every Tuesday of the month, every last Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. Central European Time. And today we are here for an exciting panel discussion. We'll go over our Shiny insights from Posit conf 2023. We've got a fantastic group of speakers today. So let's welcome them, Verle van Nemput, Eric Nans, and my fantastic colleagues from Appsilon, Veda Vias, Pedro Silva, and Alexandros Kouretsis. They'll be sharing key insights from the conference, talking about cool developments and how this can help you with your our Shiny project. So let's get started. I would like to make a short introduction of our guests. So please welcome Verle van Nemput. I'm sure many of you know Verle from LinkedIn. She is one of the top voices in our Shiny space, where she shares invaluable content that can really supercharge your art journey. She is a master of R&D Shiny consultancy and a founder of Highbright, where she helps organizations and individual master R, making it professional, scalable, and accessible. Hello, Verle. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Our next guest needs no introduction, Eric Nans. He's well known for his incredible contributions to the R community through projects like our podcast, Shiny Developer Series, and our weekly highlights. Eric is also a director within the Statistical Innovation Center at Lilly and Company. Welcome, Eric. It's amazing that you're here with us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to this.
And now to my wonderful colleagues from Appsilon, Veda Vias. He's a Shiny developer at Appsilon with a background in mechanical engineer, but he says he fell in love with R and data science since day one of his professional career. And he was also one of the speakers at Posit conf. Welcome, Veda.
Thank you, Anna. So excited to be here.
And Alex Kouretsis is also a Shiny developer at Appsilon. He has a background in astrophysics and cosmology, and he was also one of the speakers at PositConf 2023. He loves focusing on building impactful data science application and optimizing workflows for efficiency. And that was actually something he was also talking about at the conference. Pedro Silva, a staff engineer at Appsilon. Hello, Pedro. Pedro has amazing experience working with many technologies over the years, has extensive background in web, developing both websites and application. He is, of course, like all of us here, an open source enthusiast and practitioner of JavaScript. He is also author of R and R Shiny packages. Hi, Pedro.
Hi, welcome everyone.
And I'm Joanna. I'm community and events lead at Appsilon, and I have a privilege to moderate this exciting session. So, are we ready? Can we start?
Yeah.
So let's start with a general question. How did you enjoy the conference? What were your key highlights or memorable moments? Who would like to start?
Well, maybe I can kick off with the sad note that I wasn't there in person as the only one here on this panel. So I got to enjoy the full virtual experience, which was nice. Anyway, I really liked people, chatting over Discord and just having a lot of fun there, even though they couldn't attend. So, and of course, I had a little bit of a time zone difference with, massive time difference between the Netherlands and the States. But I could watch back everything, and yeah, everything was so lovely, organized as well online. So great experience.
Yeah, I can go next. It was a unique experience where I was there for the full, 4 days, because the first 2 days I was actually teaching a workshop about Shiny, about using Shiny in production with my awesome co-host Mike Thomas from the RWiki Highlights podcast. So a lot of my early conference experience just scrambling to get ready for that and making sure my workshop materials are ready. But I'm really glad I had the good fortune of doing that workshop, because I'm able to connect with more in the Shiny community, especially those that are on that journey of bringing their usage of Shiny from small prototyping to production. And that's a hot topic of mine. I love to educate others about what I've learned and give them best practices, and really connecting with others in that workshop. It was a really engaged audience, really made all the hard work gratifying. And again, huge thanks to my co-instructor, Mike Thomas. He without him, I would not be able to do that all myself. It was a great experience. And then, of course, the main conference was really terrific. I think just meeting all my familiar friends and new faces, and those that I've talked to online for years and then get to meet in person. Obviously, it's great to see your team here in Appsilon at the Posit conference. And also got to be a TA for David Grandjean and Maya Gans's workshop on Shiny user interface design. And it was the first time I met David in person. So we were hanging out quite a bit at the conference. I'm just soaking up his knowledge, trying to take that into my future work. So really the community stuff was my favorite part, like usual.
Pedro? Oh, Pedro, go ahead. Sorry.
I can go because I think I was there, but just to make you feel a bit better, I also didn't manage to see every single presentation that I wanted. So I guess the offline experience is still pretty good. I'll probably be watching and rewatching some of the presentations. Well, probably until next year. There was so much cool stuff, and kind of just to echo what Eric said, like there's nothing quite like the atmosphere and just that group of people being there, because you kind of know that everyone talks your language, and it's just this very unique experience that you can have. And if you never manage to go, I definitely recommend that you go at least once if you're in the R and not even Shiny related specific stuff. If you just are somehow involved in R, or if you want to be more involved, it's a once in a lifetime experience.
I had an amazing experience this year, meeting so many people who have inspired me over the years in one place was the best part by far. Normally, I would only see them in GitHub issues, LinkedIn posts like Verle, or conference recordings or gatherings like this one. But to see them in person and have a conversation with them, that was by far the best part. And because of that, you don't usually attend the talks. Sometimes you just forget about that and have conversations with people. So I'll have to rewatch it like you, everyone else. And one more key event that happened was the Shiny Gathering that happened live, and the trivia night was such a highlight of the day, of the whole event, I would say. Pedro did an amazing trivia, and we also won the prize. But even if we didn't win any prize, I would still be so happy. It was that amazing. How about you, Alex?
Yes, fantastic. The atmosphere are open there to talk to and interact. It's definitely should go and go to the conference one day if you haven't. And me, I also didn't manage to attend all presentations, but now I have a lot of content to see for the next of the year, for the rest of the year. And Shiny Gathering was fantastic. Really had super fun there, and the trivia was like amazing. Have people
Well,
like
we'll have to do
crowd.
it online so people don't have, a fear of missing out. So we should
Yes.
definitely repeat it and do the online version. I'm not sure how we will be able to do it, but I'll find a way. So something for the future.
Amazing.
I forgot to mention that if you have questions for our guests, please type them in the comments, and we'll have time for them at the end of the session. So there were 23 talks, if I'm not mistaken, related to Shiny. Can you share your favorite presentation at the conference? What about it stood out for you? Pedro, do you want to start?
I can. So I'm a creature of habits. I think it's the best way to put it. I very much have a background on web, which means that whenever I see something somehow web related, I always get giddy to see something that either I used to work with or I knew from my web times kind of make its way into R. There was I think like a general highlight was this is kind of a continuation from last year, but I think there's a bigger focus on UI UX when it comes to Shiny applications, Quarto websites. That it's even in this conference there was quite a bit of it, but I cannot escape the WebR and the Shiny Live for our craze that's going on. I actually had the pleasure of working with Eric in a pilot in WebR specifically after the conference. I think we did really well, and it really showed how powerful it can be, even in this early stage. If it continues like this in 6 months, it's going to be a completely different landscape for Shiny and Quarto, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I have to +1 on that, because I think if I had to choose one talk, it definitely was the talk by Joe Chang from with Shiny Live for R and the announcement. I think it was eagerly awaited as well, because we saw WebR first, and then people started trying to do Shiny apps with WebR too, which was a pain because I had many sleepless nights doing that. And then there was Shiny Live, and then it was just, one function, and well, it worked. It was amazing. So yeah, definitely would rewatch that one 1,000 times.
Yeah, very much a plus, however many numbers you can have on WebR. I mean, I had an inkling, or Shiny Live for R, I had an inkling it was coming, but at the same time, being with, members of the community at the same time to hear that live. Yeah, Joe did an absolutely amazing job with that talk. And literally, we're just looking at each other like, what do we want to try now? What do we want to try now? Like, we're all thinking, like, what can we do to push the envelope on this? And yeah, Pedro, as you said, we've had a good fortune on collaborating on a potential use that even Joe called out in one of his slides that we can do with our consortium submissions working group. So we're really excited to see where we can take this in life sciences. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight. I do want to, give some kudos as well to getting to Pedro's point about a lot of attention being paid on UI, UX, web technology. We're seeing some massive advancements in the BS Lib package that Carson Sievert talked about in one of his presentations, and also kind of that whiteboard dashboarding kind of functionality with a Shiny UI editor that Nick Strayer has been doing a ton of work on, to be able to see that take its next step in evolution. And hearing Nick's talk on that, those are also two really nice gems that you'll want to watch the recordings of when they're released. So those are definitely some of my favorite talks.
Yeah, that's a +1 from me as well. I hate to go last. You stole all the good talks, so I don't have any new talks that I can add. But Joe Cheng's talk was by far, I would say, revolutionary. It was so simple and elegant. Like the talk was inspiring, I would say. So the potential that you can run your Shiny apps in browser unlocks, it reduces the cost by so much that you can do new things. So that was the point he was trying to convey, and I truly believe that. And I think our Shiny community will see a lot of new use cases for Shiny, which was not possible until now. So I'm really looking forward to that. And a TLDR version of what Joe Cheng presented was, you can now convert Fiddle and include Shiny apps in your workflow.
It's amazing to have now the ability. I will go also for Shiny Live and be asleep. It's amazing that you have the ability now to deploy to GitHub pages, through your CI. It's amazing. And for be asleep also, I'm like quite excited that you escaped this, let's say, Bootstrap 3 trap that we had for 10 years in Shiny, and now you can go further to Bootstrap 4, 5, but still, keep respect to your legacy code and be able to still have reproducibility and all that nice stuff. Yes.
Yeah, I think that point, I just want to underscore just how important it is that the Shiny team has made sure that we have backward compatibility with classical type Shiny apps that have been made in the early days. Heck, yours truly has been one of the earliest users of it. And I have some old apps that you don't want to see the code of because it's kind of hideous compared to today's standards. But at the same time, it still works. But yet BSLib is able to push this envelope further and be able to have that nice next generation experience. It really is a welcome change to making sure that you can get that unique experience from a UX standpoint without necessarily being at Pedro's master level of web developer extraordinaire. Like I can make a pretty sophisticated looking app with BSLib and without too much trouble. So I think that's a really promising time. If you're getting started with Shiny, the tooling is just immensely better than it was in the early days.
Yeah, also on that, I think that because there's always a big talk about like UI UX and how important it is. But things like BSLib give you a UI UX kind of from the developer side as well. So it's even more impressive that it works on both sides, because you will get a good experience when implementing a good experience. So it's like a box inside a box inside a box that you're without even thinking, you're just making your apps much more approachable to your users, but also someone made it very approachable for you to actually make this. Like it's extremely impressive. Maybe just on the WebR topic, because I always need to talk a bit more about WebR. While I am very excited on the browser side, I still believe that this might have huge implications for scaling, even on the server side. There's a lot of good examples of how to use WebAssembly specifically in the server. So we might actually be even on the verge of having like an order of magnitude easier ways of scaling the server side of Shiny as well, which could also be pretty interesting.
Yeah, now we're talking about WebR and WASM and stuff. Anyway, there was another talk by another Joe. Joe, I don't know if I pronounced his last name correctly. It's Joe Kieran Kick? Sick? I don't know. Apologies if you're listening. But he had a talk which was called Shiny New Tools for Scaling Your Shiny Apps. And he talked about DuckDB in the browser. So he actually talked about you have data in your Shiny app. You can then offload it, to the browser as kind of a database and then do operations on it. So it was not necessarily Shiny Live he talked about ways to offload things to the browser using all these tools that are out there. And I think this is great, indeed great for scalability. If you can just push all the data to the browser and let the browser do the stuff. Of course, security issues could arise there and then, but I'm just curious to see where that goes. I don't know if anybody here on this panel tried out DuckDB WASM for Shiny already, but he had he has interesting code on GitHub, so I would recommend to check it out.
And maybe just on the trajectory side, I think there's actually a very comparable thing that already exists. So PyScript came up about 1 or 2 years before we kind of started of talking about this idea of having WebR. So it is a bit more optimized. There's a lot of things you can already do. So just for context, PyScript is basically WebR, but for Python. There's a lot of really good examples. So there's a if you're looking for ideas of what to do with WebR, a good hack is probably to look at what people did with PyScript and see if it was done in R or not. But it also kind of shows us where this can go. So how can it grow? What other things? What other tools it can bring? Also, just remember you don't need to use only WebR. If you like Python, you can also use PyScript in the same project. It'd also be interesting to have some cross-language projects going on and see where that goes.
On that note, the conference also featured a significant amount of Python-related content. It's been over a year since Shiny for Python was announced. Was there anything you found interesting in the conference for the Python users? Maybe let's dive into that for a moment.
So there was a talk by Marcos Huerta, who had a talk called "Making a Python web app is easy." And I'm an R developer. I'm not a Python developer. I know basic Python, but I'm an R developer. But he had a talk which was for the Python users who kind of compared Streamlit with Dash with Shiny for Python, and what the differences are, and how easy or difficult it is to transform from one to the other. And I think if you are a Python user and if you are interested in Shiny, I would definitely recommend to check out this talk, because it really shows how it's different from Dash and how it has benefits and how it can help you build quick and easy apps. So I think this was a really cool talk about Python.
Yeah, that was literally what I was going to say too. Marco's talk was excellent. I actually didn't get to see it live, but I talked to Marcos afterwards, and yeah, he shared some of the insights. So I think in that space, it's definitely required viewing. Admittedly, in my industry, we don't do as much Python in my current role, but certainly we've had situations where we've had to interact with other development teams of researchers that are doing optimization or some machine learning in Python. And I can see immense potential to kind of bridge that gap of bringing those models in to, say, a Shiny app built with Python, where traditionally we built a totally separate app. We were, cross calling Python with reticulating and the like, but now with Shiny for Python, we can do it all in one place. So I think there's some great potential there too.
Another Python beginner over here. So I also liked Winston Chang's chat stream talk, in which he talked about how he managed to connect the Open AI's API key into a Python app, which was really cool. He not only explained how to build it, but also went in the background of how LLM works, what are the pros and cons of using it, what are the good tasks for LLM, which was super cool. And there was also an Easter egg. So during the lightning talk, he released a song of Snoop Dogg versus Biggie, R versus Python, which was so cool. It's there in Twitter if anyone wants to check it out.
Yeah. I also enjoyed from Chelsea talk about deploying machine learning to Shiny for Python, and yeah, how you can actually tap the, let's say, flexibility and the way that the reactive graph works, so that you can skip steps on the, let's say, computations in the way that you do your hyperparameterization for model fit, etc. So yeah, this was a talk that I really enjoyed, and there was also in where the booths were a small talk about mutability in Python and how it is something that you should be cautious about, and how it can, hijack the reactive graph of Shiny and, create side effects. And I think this is also true for a little bit for R in Shiny if you are using non-reference semantics like R6 classes mutability and data table. But yeah, this gets a little bit technical, I think.
Yeah, I would maybe just add one thing that isn't like very specific, but if you've been to a conference before, I think the vibe was also kind of different. Like the whole R versus Python kind of disappeared a bit. They were very just, but it wasn't like an R conference or a Python conference. It was just a conference where these two just seamlessly seem to coexist in the same spot. And I feel like this is might show where we're going. Like if you're in a company and you have a department that works in R and a department that works in Python, maybe they don't need to fight. Maybe they can actually be friends and just coexist and actually empower each other much more.
Okay, thanks. I want to come back to those exciting announcements. You already mentioned a bit about that. Did you try Shiny in browser? If so, how did it go? And can you give us a brief rundown for our audience and share your insights?
Well, as I said before, sorry, but I wrote a blog about,
Yes,
I think it was a couple of months ago, where I did it without Shiny Live for R. And it required some script from George Stack, who did that very gracefully. And it was so hard to get it working. And it was so cool that it worked, but it was still so hard. And then I did it again, but then with Shiny Live. And as I said, it was simple, just one line of code. And it converted my app to, this a folder with all kinds of files and a static HTML file. And I could just take the folder, drop it on my WordPress website, because, I'm old school. I used WordPress, not GitHub Pages. I dropped it there and it just worked. So my app was running right there on my WordPress website with minimal effort. It only took 10 minutes. And you just need a Shiny app. Then you need to install some packages, and you have one function that makes all these files for you and this folder, and then you can pick it up and put it somewhere. So it's very easy to use. That being said, since I wrote that blog, that was, I think, 1 week or so after the conference, it already changed so much. So the package changed, the functions changed, the functionality changed. But that's cool, because that means that people are working on it and making it better. But it is still in the experimental phase. So you do need to keep an eye out if stuff is still working a couple of weeks later. But it's very exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a very fast-moving area, and I remember first hearing about WebAssembly and WebR in general. I remember following Bob Rudis's post where he was linking all sorts of things in WebAssembly and tying in some JavaScript, visualization. And I was trying to fumble my way through it. Admittedly, this is all brand new to me. I'm just a traditional R user, Shiny, developer. So this was all new territory. And then as George starts implementing more features, more enhancements, I started doing a few more basic examples. And then, of course, being able to collaborate with Pedro, on the WebR WebAssembly version of the app we're working on. That's been a great exercise too, to kind of see where you're going with this and putting those skills to good use. So I'm definitely early on this as well, but like all of you said, I think the UX of this is becoming so much better. And I'm seeing some teasers from George that firms can get even better in the coming months about loading time. So we're really on the cusp of greatness here. And yeah, I've been an early adopter, but now it's been even easier to implement. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, so just for like some context on this, we did like a small app with Eric a couple of weeks ago, and it might be one of the more complex WebR apps out there right now. So
we didn't make it easy for you, Pedro. Just saying. Yeah.
No. So just to give you like some ideas on the sizes, we're talking about something like close to 100 package dependencies and close to 100 megabytes of packages being loaded. And if anything, it just showed like how resilient it is, because we really tried to break it, and we didn't manage it. Like Eric says, the loading is still something that needs to be worked on, because it still takes quite a bit. But if the last time we talked with George, he has some really nice ideas of how to solve this. And if it goes like that, we're talking about 1 order of magnitude faster. So instead of 3 or 4 minutes, we're talking about like just a couple of seconds. That will be pretty amazing. That would be pretty exciting. Not only for browser applications, but also for just offline applications. You can just download the app, you download the dependencies, it's in your machine. It just works. So you can kind of have the whole power of an application just encapsulated in a way that you cannot have it right now.
Yeah, so Pedro, just about that, because you know a little bit more than most of us, I think, what George is up to. But with the WebR applications, obviously it loads libraries. It takes a long time. So a Shiny app in the browser just takes an really unacceptable amount of 10 seconds to load. Nobody's going to wait for that in the real world. It's nice as a toy example, but your users are going to run away. So can you shine any light on how such a thing would be solved? Is that with caching in the browser, or?
So it's weird. The best way I can explain it is so I'm also not an expert on WebAssembly specifically, but there is a way of just think of it as connecting a USB pen to the WebAssembly machine, and the idea behind the mechanism is that the thing that's actually slow. We managed to realize that even if you're downloading 100 megabytes of packages from the internet, this isn't actually the slow part. The slow part is loading. It's the library call to WebR itself, because it needs to do all the initialization and set up all the files and all of this. The idea with the new and improved loading that should be coming eventually is that you'll be able to just make that package accessible to WebR, so that there's no need to initialize it. You basically skip the library call, so you just hotwire it directly into the environment. And this is basically you add the pen drive and the files are there. I don't know if there's like a better way of explaining this, because I'm also not entirely sure about what's going on behind under the seat, the hood of all of this.
As you were talking, Pedro, I pull up my notes from our last discussion with George, and apparently he's making some big enhancements to how those packages are being, in essence, loaded and uncompressed, and not relying on base R to do that anymore, but relying on the native WebAssembly processes to load those packages in, and then taking advantage of new imaging with this Inscripton data file system storage. Again, just like Pedro, I'm learning all this on the fly too, but he's apparently got some great leads on leveraging optimal package loading, optimal file storage in the WebAssembly process to make this to be at least near what we get in a native R session when we boot up our Shiny app. So it's definitely, like you said, Vera, no one's going to wait a minute or 2 minutes to load this app in a browser. But once this enhancement's in, I think then anything's fair game.
Yeah. With all that being said, there's still like the elephant in the room, which is like the size of the WebAssembly file itself. This can also be optimized a bit. There's also like Shiny Live kind of helps a bit because it has that loading screen, so you can have some instant feedback, and maybe you can even build around this idea of having some minimal feature or some minimal thing that the user can do before everything becomes available. So this idea of lazy loading the actual functionality of the app could also be a way to improve it. I don't think you'll ever get away from just the size of it. The good thing is that it can be cached. So if you're okay with waiting the first time, after that it should be much faster. At that point, it's just not even a second; it's already there. So you just need to make sure that people will get through the first loading, and then that will be fine. And if you're, like you mentioned, when you're embedding these on websites, there's also the whole question of, can we share these assets between the different apps. If you have multiple apps, for example, in different pages, will these be shared? What is the type of caching we're doing? Can we reuse these, or are we going to have to load them for each of the apps? So that there's a lot of room for optimization there. That is probably still, I don't know, a year, 2 years away, but we'll keep hammering on it and maybe try to do our part.
Okay, maybe we can talk more. Also, we already mentioned this topic at the beginning, but more about Shiny UI and design talks during the conference. I'm looking at you, Pedro, because that's something that's really interesting for you, but I'm pretty sure that for others as well. Can you tell us more about it? Anything you found especially interesting during the conference?
For me, it was just, so there were a couple of UI specific talks that I think are really important. I think a lot of them were already mentioned. I think for me, it's just the whole mentality around it. Like we've seen this since, especially since the last year, that there's a bigger focus on UI itself. I'm personally not the #1 fan of Bootstrap, so I'm hoping that there will be some alternatives as well. But even with the especially with something like BSLib that works on this idea of you can configure basically anything and create your own version of what you want your UI to look like, and you will have this version by just doing a small configuration of just a couple of hundred different design tokens. Even just the fact that this exists and don't need to go through the actual CSS or the actual web side of it, but you can do it directly from R. For me, it shows a lot of potential. There, again, I don't know how deep we need to go to make it super customizable, super extendable. But I like the direction that we're going. I think more of this is good.
Yeah, more about UI. I think also there's placed more emphasis on designing your app before you start. So we also saw some improvements in Shiny UI editor, which basically lets you drag and drop your UI elements in the user interface somewhere. So it also makes UX and UI design accessible for the beginners, so to say, because this makes it easy, tools like this, to just drag and drop the things and see what it looks like and come up with a real ID before you actually, start coding. So yeah, I agree with you, Pedro, that there is being a little bit of shift towards, okay, we're not just developing dashboards or just developing, toy applications that show some data. No, we are developing applications that have users, and they just need to look good, and they need to work, and they need to be engaging. And so yeah, we're definitely professionalizing, I think, when it comes to that.
Yeah, actually, I think this dovetails. I remember watching a little bit of the chat earlier, and someone was asking about overcoming "quote unquote" decision fatigue when it comes to all these possibilities we have from a UI UX standpoint. I think with leveraging the tools we have now, you can now optimize your design process and not feel like, oh, I've got an idea, I'm going to code it up, wait until I got something, then talk to stakeholders. But then they say, no, we were thinking something different, Eric. No, go change this to this and this. Go back to your desk and do it again. Now we can bring them into an interactive session, say with the UI editor pulled up, and start changing layouts, changing the priority of the aesthetics of certain elements, and then to be able to have that more interactive kind of partnership with who your app is being authored to. And that's something that a lot of us coming from just the R world have not had to dive into this part of the app, software development process, especially from a UX standpoint. But now I think we have the tools to bring that key decision or the key customers in sooner than like towards the end. And then you realize, oh, I was completely off base. What do I do? I think now we've got the tools to make that more iterative and frankly more productive for everybody involved.
I would also
Yes,
add that there was an amazing talk by Michal Parkola from Appsilon, who talked about how to make app users fall in love with you, something like that. And it was amazing. He also shared a document to help guide design decisions for your app. So I think most of the time the design fatigue comes when you're actively developing and you want to think of ideas. So I think you should split those two things. Like, you need to conceptualize your app first, think about what the users want, what kind of app you're going to build, what UI package you'll use, what layout you'll use. Once everything is sorted out, then if you start to code, I don't think you'll have as much trouble. So the tool that he shared is basically a Google Sheet, which we internally use to find these things out before we start a project. So I highly recommend checking it out later.
Yes, I really also like the talk by Michael Pargola about this design, and I also like Maria's talk about the power of prototyping, and in general, the sooner that you onboard users and they interact with your prototype, I think it can save you for over developing your application, put things like in place. And actually, there was also a kind of related talk by Tiger Tang that I really enjoyed, and it is like correspondence between creating a Shiny app and starting a startup. So he has like some nice ideas, let's say, taken from the Silicon Valley series from HBO. So, don't overdevelop, onboard your users, try to find budget, keep things minimal, and yeah, don't develop a Swiss Army knife, but if you just need a toothpick, go for the best toothpick that you can get and get it out to the users. Yeah.
Yeah, I think UX is, you could probably spend like, I don't know, a couple of days talking about UX before before we touch everything. I would just like to mention one thing. Never underestimate the power of wireframing. So just the idea that you can sketch very quick, rapid prototypes of something just to validate it. And also, no, don't underestimate the power of a piece of paper. I've done it many times where you sit your with the client that wants the application, and you just start scribbling pieces of paper as like UI components, and you kind of just start making like this unshaped puzzle, which slowly starts to become a dashboard. But paper is such an easy thing to just take it away, make another. Uh, Maybe you make a new menu. Maybe you make a slightly different chart. Maybe you change the layout around. Like this kind of stuff can be super powerful just to get like the basic idea of what eventually you're going to build. And when you actually start a new project, you already have like this vision of what it's going to look like before you even did the single line of code.
Okay, thank you. I'm thinking, because we have people listening to us who have not attended Posit Conf, and if you had to recommend just one talk to watch them later, because Posit is going to release all the content from the conference, which presentation would it be and why? And if you could just share the key takeaways from that presentation with us, that would be great.
And one additional rule, we can't mention the same.
Yes, that I know it's not going to
Otherwise,
be
we
easy,
will
but
all
let's
be
try.
saying,
Let's
yes.
try.
Otherwise, we will all be saying, Shiny Life for R by Joe Chang. You have to watch that. Which is true, and it was my favorite. But yeah, there were a lot of other good talks out there.
Who goes first has the easiest task, and then it's gonna be harder.
I can go. I have something different. There is a talk about data viz animation and interactivity in Quarto, which I think can really be. So I do have some high hopes for Quartal, and I hope that more and more people start using it so that it becomes more and more popular and more stuff gets done for it. So more packages, more focus on it. Unlock the. I actually need to check. Unlock the power of data viz animation and interactivity in Quartal. So this is my recommendation.
Was it from Deepsha?
Yes.
Okay, that was amazing. Yeah. Who's next?
Well,
Okay, maybe I
different
can.
from the shiny. Yeah, or you go ahead.
Okay, so for me, it's not that common. Building a flexible, scalable, self-serve reporting system with Shiny by Natalie O'Shea. It was amazing. I loved it because of two reasons. It helped me stumble upon a new package called Gargoyle, which was something I heard for the first time, and so I explored it. So usually talks that make you explore new things are good, in my opinion. The other one was it also talked about uh, how to procure Posit products in your company, which is not that easy. If you're coming from a company, you'd know that getting a new product signed on is super difficult. But she had great points on how you can build a case for getting that. So it had both. So I would say it was a wholesome talk.
This is tough because there's so many good ones. So I'm going to go to my kind of current life sciences roots on this one. Mike Smith over at Pfizer did an amazing talk about the 30 years of industry experience and seeing just how far we've come in leveraging open source in our statistical work in life sciences, and now to this next generation of clinical submissions. It is just engaging to see just how far we've gone from the era of floppy disk and shipping outputs in semi trucks to regulators of the different clinical results to now how we're leveraging automation, leveraging Shiny, leveraging all the innovations that R and open source brings. It is just a fascinating time. So Mike Smith just did a terrific job on that talk. So I'd highly recommend that.
Yeah, and if I learned one great tip, it was the lightning talk. So it was a 5-minute talk, but it was great. It was from somebody from the Appsilon team, from Richard. And he was talking about speeding up plots in R Shiny. And I learned the best tip ever there to speed up your high charts. If you're using the high charter package, which is built on the high charts library, there is just a simple one-liner that speeds up your app, like massively. Like instead of maybe a 3-second rendering, you have, an instant rendering of your plot. And it was so great. And he also gave tips on how to speed up Plotly, for example, with the to-WebGL function, which I didn't know about. So it was just 5 minutes, but wow, well spent.
Oh, Richard is going to be so excited to hear this. Yeah, it was just a 5-minute talk, but many people said that they really liked it and found very useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, from my side, it really clicked this Tiger Tanks talk about correspondence between Shiny App and startup kickoff. And I really highly recommend to see it and get some ideas on how to organize, let's say, your strategy and your planning when you have a project ahead for creating a Shiny App, from how to, design your product, how to sell it to your users, how to make it popular within your organization, etc. It has very nice tips. Yeah, I think usable.
Okay, anyone else would like to add anything?
Well, maybe just before we go to the questions, because I think that's where you want to go, right?
Yes, we have a couple.
Yeah,
So before we try to answer them.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing because it's not really Shiny related, but there was also the announcement of GitHub Copilot in the RStudio interface, which even for Shiny developers is a game changer. I had it since already in the early release, but it's so easy because you just, as you know how Copilot works, you type some code and then it, autofills your code, and it makes you so much more efficient instead of browsing for boilerplate code and stuff. And of course, it isn't always correct, and that's annoying. But I think it's great for modules, and because it also understands what you've written before and in which style you've written it. So if you are writing data table, it will continue in data table. If you wrote tidyverse, it will continue in tidyverse. So I think this is also really nice.
I remember before Copilots became a thing, before just ChatGPT started to exist. I felt super proud when I found a plugin for VS Code that would let you just highlight an error, and it would immediately do a Stack Overflow search for that specific error. You would get like a list of all the fixes that it would find. Yeah, now we don't actually need any of that. Now you have all of that knowledge kind of built in. So something like ChatGPT for RStudio IDE, which is the big news. Well, Copilot for IDE is, if it's half as powerful as it is to use it in VS Code. So I'm a bit of a mix because I like to use both editors at the same time. If it's half as powerful as the version for VS Code, then definitely try it out. Like you won't regret it.
Okay, let's try to answer some questions from the audience. So if you could share any completely new knowledge or insights you gained during the recent conference, Posit conference, as Veda said, he learned about new package. What would it be?
Well, I learned about a package that I've heard about before, but actually never looked into because I don't know why, but it's called Epoxy. And somebody talked about it, to make pretty numbers and make, text look good and format it, with the big comma and that kind of stuff. So, it's kind of a glue-like, what was it called? Super glue or something. It was based on glue. I think that's what I learned about, and I will definitely use it in following Shiny projects. Yeah.
I'm going to do a little quote unquote cheating here because I actually talked about this in the workshop, but Virla, you'll be very appreciative of this. Asynchronous processing in Shiny is now much more easier with the Crew package, authored by Will Landau, who is the author of Targets. I think now that is going to up the game of your user experience in terms of offloading processing, or at least keeping your app responsive while a longer running process is happening. So we put a little section in there in my workshop on it. But Virla, check out Virla's screencast on that. It was really well done, and I actually plugged that in the workshop as well. So I think asynchronous processing has been a very difficult concept for many people, but we're hopeful that Crew can be a great avenue for that.
Yeah, Crew is amazing. Like really clean interface. Watch that.
Pedro, is there anything specific that you'd like to share?
I don't want to repeat myself again.
Okay.
So it's probably better not, because I'll probably just end up talking about Shiny.
Alex, is there anything specific that comes to your mind?
Yes, I learned like to the backend side, let's say, of things that we're talking here is that now in Posit Connect you have this kind of ability to have, as we say, off-host execution. So you can have like a deploy Posit Connect with Kubernetes, and then whenever you start a Shiny process, you can deploy your containers, and Posit Connect will take let's say, responsibility of these and start processes outside of a single server. So I don't know, if you have a big data science team and you've got a Posit Connect instance and a lot of people are onboarded there, many times you might see the server, getting hit a little bit hard. And now you can have this host execution. And yeah, you can have even like more control on the CPU usage or much better control on the resources in the backend as well. So we scale now in the backend better, I think, as well as in the front end.
Thank you. We have a question about where the talks will be published, and I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be, but it's going to be on the Posit conf, a Posit website. Do you know maybe when is the time of when Posit is going to share the content from the conference?
I think their YouTube channel in 3 months. That is what they said.
3 months. Okay, well,
Not soon enough.
not soon enough.
Well, I can relate to that issue because I'm the editor of the R Pharma talks that we just had last week, and it does take some time to edit those. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching those and catching up on the talks I missed.
I also think you can still register for the conference, and then you can watch the videos already if you still want to.
Yeah, those are like the raw videos, so there may be, editing gotchas there somewhere, but yeah, it's better than nothing for sure.
We have one more question about WebR, but I'm not sure if we haven't really covered that already. How to handle our Shiny app with huge data and WebR. So far, what I have seen with small data, it works great, tried it, but next step would be of overcoming challenges. Anything that
I think the short answer is you don't. There's always going to be the time of downloading the data and all of that. The long answer is if you're okay with being connected to the internet, you can have an API. So something like a REST API, even a Plumber API that queries this data and only returns you like a small part of it should work perfectly. So there's a lot of ways and a lot of techniques of building these, but similar to a traditional Shiny app, you want to keep as much of the data outside of the app as possible.
Yeah, I agree, Pedro. And actually, maybe, the talk, Virla, that you referenced earlier about using, say, DuckDB in a WebAssembly process might be helpful for some of that. But as Pedro said, you don't want your full-blown, whole data set, database structure, voluminously loading at the app startup. You want to be able to query that effectively, only get what you need, and then get out, so to speak.
I would probably recommend something like Plumber and dbPlyer to kind of get you started. Like if you can make an API around these, you're going to have a lot less data in memory at all times, and you don't even need to do this in WebR. I think this is a good advice even for Shiny apps, for traditional Shiny apps. If it's super easy to test with the Shiny app, if you can get it to work there, you'll also notice the difference in a WebR application.
Okay, I think it's a wrap up. We're running out of time. So I would like to thank you for this insightful discussion and for joining us today. Thank you to all our speakers and all the participants. Thank you for joining us again. And don't forget to mark your calendars for the next Shiny Gathering. We'll be having one on November 28th. And we'll delve into more exciting Shiny topics with Paweł Rudzki from Roche. More details coming soon. I think it's going to be an exciting session as well. So until then, keep shining bright and let's stay connected. See you at the next Shiny Gathering. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Yep.